Kirishima finally got some backstory, and it couldn't have come at a better time, seeing how he has sacrificed himself for Fat Gum in last week's chapter so that he could achieve his new form. Most people probably thought we'd be getting Fat Gum vs Rappa this week, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't one of them. Instead, however, we got a lovely flashback of Kirishima before the days of the UA Academy. Based on what we saw in the chapter, it's pretty recent actually. Right before he applies to UA Academy, I'd say, since he had those papers where he's to write down which schools he'd prefer to move on to, and UA Academy was at the top of that list before he erased it. No doubt he is going to change his mind and whatnot in the next chapter, since it does seem to be leading into even more flashback chapters. Not just one, it would be pretty off-putting if it just goes right back into Fat Gum's fight next chapter, so I do indeed think it's going to continue. We got some more information, of course, about Kirishima's earlier days, but also something really cool, which is that we got some more information about Crimson Riot, the hero that Kirishima looks up to in the same way that Midoriya looks up to All Might. I guess you could say it's his role model. The information that we received was that Crimson Riot is apparently known as the hero of chivalry. Now, that on its own opens up an opportunity for discussion, and I am actually making a discussion on Crimson Riot at some point, so if you're interested about that, keep your eyes peeled. So Kirishima obviously looks up to Crimson Riot and seemingly has for a long time. We don't really know if they've had an actual encounter or if he's just seen him on television or whatnot, but Kirishima seems to be holding on to something that Crimson Riot has said, which is that, and I quote, "As long as you got a manly spirit, then quirks don't count for nothing." So clearly Crimson Riot is someone who values ability to engage in conflicts regardless of the battle conditions. This much we can pretty much tell for sure, and Kirishima obviously wants to follow in these footsteps. However, in this chapter we got to see how Kirishima tries his best to engage in conflicts, much like his idol advises, but it doesn't really work out the way he expects it to really. He probably has the image in his head of how it's going to turn out, but to actually confront someone who's doing something really bad, as we saw twice in this chapter, that's when Kirishima failed to act. He was simply too afraid, or as Crimson Riot would have put it, he didn't have a manly enough spirit at the time. Now if you think about it for a second, in the present Kirishima is completely different from what we've seen in this flashback. Kirishima is taking bullets for people. He confronts people with vastly superior quirks than himself. He's doing exactly the opposite of what we've been seeing in this flashback, so there's clearly been a lot of progress on Kirishima's end, although we've probably not seen most of it. It has probably been mostly off screen. I'm pretty sure that we're going to be seeing this progression continue in 1, 2, or maybe even 3 chapters to come, because it has potential. That much has been made abundantly clear. The same can be said for pretty much anyone in this series. Horikoshi knows how to do backstories and character progression, and he does it really well. The pacing is good, the rate at which a character actually progresses is moderate, and it's not extremely fast, but it's not so slow that you won't notice the progression either. And this is something that I personally find to be a very good quality in a writer. Okay then, so I'm not sure if it just slipped my mind or if this is some new information, but apparently Kirishima and Ashido went to the same school in their younger days. And what's very noticeable in this chapter is that back then, Ashido was the one who seemingly had the more heroic spirit out of the two, or well, at least on the outside, because we of course see how she stops the bullies the first time, and the second time she diverts the villain looking guy in a cloak by pure instinct. Much like how Midoriya keeps running into problems without thinking first, let's call it hero's instinct. This is something that Kirishima lacked at this point, but Ashido clearly had it already at this time. Now, what I really find fascinating is, while this is the backstory of Kirishima, Ashido is used to build that even further. She's a character that we are familiar with, and she's being used to compare just how it was a few years back at the most. Instead of Kirishima being the one who's taking the spotlight of the two, Ashido had that role at this time in the flashback. However, it's not that she was necessarily braver than Kirishima, because we do see how Ashido actually falls to her knees after getting the villain to leave the area. She's scared shitless, and this just kinda tells us even more that what she did was only instinct. It didn't really have anything to do with bravery, but Horikoshi is writing it in such a way that he wants us to think that that's the case at first, and then near the end it is revealed that of course they're more or less in the same boat. The only difference is that one of them had the spirit or instinct to confront an ominous character, the other one didn't. So yes, I really want to see what the next few chapters hold in terms of what we're going to be seeing from Kirishima and potentially even Ashido. Now, of course, it's possible that the next chapter wraps up their backstory. I personally hope not, but at the same time I won't complain if that's the case. They might develop the backstories even further in the future, so there's really nothing to complain about. The one thing I want to know, however, is just how strong the connection between Kirishima and Crimson Riot actually is. Like if he just idolizes him or if they actually have met. It would be really cool to know for sure, especially given how much this chapter emphasized on Crimson Riot's quote of how the manly spirit is superior to that of quirks. Anyway, I'll be ending the review here. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. To me, this chapter was extremely good. And as always, if you did, please like this video. If you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new to my channel. This has been your favorite host, Perm, and I'll see you soon.